وسيلة أعمالنا بيهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد إن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Brothers and sisters in Islam, it is important that we take time out of our days to reflect, that we are not surprised when we stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. And that it requires that we take account of ourselves. And so I actually want you to think about what is happening, what have you done from the beginning of this week until today? Did you pray Fajr every day? And where did you pray Fajr today? What time? What about the rest of your salawat? And then have you given charity? Have you talked about somebody that you shouldn't have talked about? What about your tongue? Is it wet with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or do I talk a lot about other people? What am I consuming on a daily basis? The things that I'm eating, is it all halal? Again, you may feel like this is a lot. What kind of scrutiny is this? But the reality is that there's a day where all of that, when we're just talking about Monday and Friday right now, but where all of that from the beginning of our lives is recorded. And from the beauty of this need, and from the great blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that He conceals a lot of our sins. I mean, can you imagine? Just think about, again, from Monday to Friday, think about just the things that you may have looked at and listened to and said. So we're just talking about a few of your faculties. Think about if all of that is written on your forehead so that everybody walked around and met could see exactly what you've done. How would life be? Would your wife want to stay with you? Would your children still love you? But Allah conceals that. And that is from His beautiful blessings upon us. Allah says in the Quran, أَلَمْ تَرَوْا أَنَّ اللَّهَ سَخَّرَ لَكُم مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Do you not see that Allah has made subject to you everything in the heavens and everything on earth? وَأَسْبَغَ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعَمَهُ ظَاهِرَةً وَبَاطِنَةً. And He has showered His favors upon you, those which are hidden and those which are apparent, or those which are apparent and those which are hidden. Some of the scholars of Tafsir, the early scholars of Tafsir, like Ibn Abbas and Qatil, rahimahumullah, they said that the apparent favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those that are evident, that's the beauty in which Allah has created your form, that is giving you the blessings of Islam, that's the external and the evident blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that the hidden blessings are those things which Allah has concealed of your transgressions. That this is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the early scholars of Islam, Muhammad ibn Wyatt, he was one of the companions of Anas ibn Malik. He said, if sins had a smell, nobody would sin next to me. Think about that. This is from the greatest scholars of Islam, and they are acknowledging that we are all the children of Adam. When the Prophet ﷺ described our situation, every child of Adam commits sins. Everyone is going to make mistakes. Everyone is going to slip. But the best of those who make mistakes are those who turn. Constantly turn. Khutbah. Turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, this is truly a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and for that reason, when he was asked, they said, take a spot. How's your day? How's your day going? He said, a spot today and entertaining, I'll be entertaining. My day is great. I'm between two blessings. I don't even know which one to thank more. Am I thanking Allah Azza wa Jalla for the beautiful things that He's allowed to be said about me and people know about me? Oh, I got to be himself. Or those things that I don't want people to know about me is concealed. And so I want us to imagine, if we go back to that beginning part, and we think about that standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we all know that we're going with some sins. And we're not going with good deeds as well. And Allah Azza wa Jalla is shakur. Allah Azza wa Jalla is appreciative. He's not going to allow those good deeds to go to waste. But think about that standing in front of Allah Azza wa Jalla, because it's important. And I don't want to digress too much. But many of us, we're concerned about the future, but only our futures in this life. Don't think about the real future, which is the next life. And so, this week, everybody's concerned about political assassination attempts. What's going to happen if this person becomes the president? Hate and xenophobia and racism and hate speech and rhetoric and all of that stuff that we should be concerned about. But are we concerned even more about our real future? The next life is the real life. That's real life. Are we concerned about that standing in front of Allah Azza wa Jalla? And so Ibn Umar, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he was asked, what did you hear about in Najwa? That private conversation that a person is going to have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said that I heard the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say, يَدْنُوا أَحَدُكُمْ مِنْ رَبِّهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ حَتَّى يَضَعَ كَنَفَهُ. That a person will draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or Allah Azza wa Jalla will draw a person close to Him on the day of judgment until He puts that screen up. And so now the conversation becomes a private conversation between each and every single one of us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's not going to be an interpreter. There's not going to be someone to translate. It's just you and Allah Azza wa Jalla. And Allah Azza wa Jalla is going to say, I'm going together. I'm going together. You remember you did such and such, and you did such and such. But I have to do now. And that person's going to say yes. 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 And Allah Azza wa Jalla, until the person thinks he's destroyed. For you call it Allah Azza wa Jalla is going to make that person acknowledge all of their sins. And then He's going to say to him, إِنِّي سَتَرْتُهَا عَلَيْكَ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَأَنَا أَغْفِرُهَا لَكَ. I covered that for you in the dunya. And I'll forgive you for that today. Allah Azza wa Jalla covers us because He is a Sittir, subhanahu wa ta'ala. From the beautiful names of Allah is that He is a Sittir, the concealer. And Allah Azza wa Jalla wants us to know Him. He created us to worship Him, and He created us to know Him. And the heart's function, the heart has a physical function that any physician can tell you about, anybody can tell you. Pumping the blood through the body and so forth. That's the physical function of the heart. But there's a metaphysical function of the heart, and that's to know its Lord. It was created so that you know Him. And there's going to be a void in the heart of each and every one of us that we're going to try to fill if we don't know who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Because we don't know what's wrong. And so you see people who are going to intoxicate themselves, they're going to get drunk and high, and they're going to get high on entertainment, and they're going to distract themselves. There's something in their heart that's not fulfilled, and they don't know what it is, but it's because they don't know the one that created it. And Allah wants us to know Him, so He revealed the Quran. And He inspired with revelation our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to teach us who He is, to teach us His beautiful names and His attributes and what He does, what His sunnah is. And from those beautiful names is As-Sittin. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he saw a man one day who was bathing, but he didn't put a screen between himself and the people. So he was just taking the ghusl, like basically in public. He was at a distance, but nonetheless, he couldn't see. And so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to the people, "Inna Allah hadithun sittin." Allah is modest and He is the concealer. He is sittin. Yuhibbul hayat wa sitr. Allah loves for us to be modest and have some sense of shame. And He loves that we conceal as well. Allah loves this. فَإِذَا اغْتَسَلَ أَحَدُكُمْ فَلْيَسْتَتِرْ. So if one of you bathes, then let him cover. Right? Let there be a cover between him and the people. So the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us that Allah is as-sittir, which comes from the root setar, right? Which means to cover or to conceal, except that it's the emphatic form, which is most of, when we look at Allah's names, most of His names are of that emphatic form. So it's not just a coverer or a concealer, He is one who constantly and consistently conceals, and with intensity conceals. I want us to think about that. Because there's different forms of concealment, and the sisters know about this better than the brothers. Right? Sisters who put on foundation, that's one thing. That's going to cover up certain blemishes. But a concealer is covering up everything. Allah is as-sittir. So His covering is not something that's light, it's intense. And if we think about all that Allah is actually covered from the things that we don't want people to see, then what a blessing that is from As-Sittir, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And part of that, knowing that Allah's name As-Sittir, is that we don't expose our sins. And this is unfortunately a sign of the times. People who get on the internet, on social media, and they post everything about their lives, including things that other people should not see. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Kullu ummati wa'ada." All of my ummah is going to be parted. Think about it. I don't know. Y'all know I'm sitting in the Khutbah. Allah, I'm parted. I'm the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But he went on. Illa al-mujahideen, except for those who publicize their sins. They flaunt their sins. And so they go on social media. Some things just have to be said, as sensitive as they are. I don't understand how a father thinks it's okay to post a picture of their daughter going to the prom without hijab with her boyfriend. How does that work? Tahir, let's just say it happens. Then why? Well, forgive her, forgive him. We're not in a place to say. But that's sinful. And now I'm going to boast about it and post about it? Don't boast and don't post. But what happens is we've also adopted another major ideological flaw, which is be your authentic self. SubhanAllah. And we say this stuff, we parrot this stuff as American Muslims because we are not very good at identifying where we draw those lines. Yes, we're American. And Mormons are Americans, and Catholics are Americans, and Hindus and Sikhs and Mushrikeen, they're all Americans. It doesn't mean that we just accept anything that is considered to be a trend or something normal in society. Be your authentic self. It is be your authentic self that allows people to feel fine coming out of the closet. Because I'm going to be my authentic self. I'm not going to hide from anybody. Yes, it's kind of love. Is that what we're supposed to do as Muslims? Do we not recognize that Allah is a judge when we're talking about ourselves, the nafs, in the nafs of the animal to the suit, that your nafs, that your self commands you to do evil, so you're going to be your authentic self, which means I'm just going to show everybody the evil that I do, and I'm going to boast about it and post about it? No. That is the struggle that we have. Yes, we all have our struggles, and those are things that we should not publicize, not flaunt. All of this ummah will be forgiven, will be pardoned, except for those who expose themselves, those who publicize their own sins. And by extension, you should not expose the sins of other believers. Allah Azza will reward you handsomely for covering the faults of a believer. Man satara musliman satarahu Allahu yawm al-qiyamah. Whoever covers, conceals the faults of a Muslim, Allah will conceal his faults on the day of judgment. But there's something a little deeper, and I hope that we pay attention to this. It's not enough just that we conceal the faults of another believer. We should love for the believers what we love for ourselves. And that's different than just not concealing. See, some of us won't get involved in exposing the exposure culture, but we love drama, so we follow it. We're not going to be part of the exposing mechanism, but we see the YouTube clip that says such and such exposed. Oh, interesting. Fulan, this man, that sister who's the Quran teacher or whatever, and they're like, oh, they got exposed. Almost as if we're happy that some other Muslim who was prominent was exposed. Is that some jealousy? And now, oh, I'm happy that they got exposed. Oh, they were faking piety this whole time. And then we get happy with that? Is that who we are as Muslims? No. We are believers in a sincere, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And just as we want Allah to keep our sins covered and concealed, we should not love. Not only should we not expose, but we should not love for another Muslim to be exposed. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may Allah conceal our sins, and forgive our sins, and guide us to this correct. الحمد لله وكفى الصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد, there are things that we should be aware of, means to gaining Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sitr, means to gaining his concealment, that we should all be aware of and strive to do in that time. The first of them is ikhlas. That we are very intentional about being sincere in our actions. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that hadith, and this hadith is really scary. And we need to take heed. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man sami'a Allah bihi, wa man ra'a whoever does acts to be heard, he does good deeds to be heard, and it's sentiment. He wants a reputation. He wants to be known. Somebody who does good. Allah will make him be heard. But what's going to be heard is not going to be what you like. Your real intention is going to be exposed. And Allah. And whoever does deeds to be known, he wants to be seen, Allah will put him on display. Allah will put him on display. On the day of judgment, this person will be known as being someone who is not sincere. Go find the ones that you did those actions for, because they weren't for Allah. You wanted the reward, you got your reward. Your reward was that it was said that you were pious, you are sheep, you are reciting, you are charitable, you are mujahid, whatever. That's what you got. You got your reward. That's not going to be what Allah has done. So ikhlas. Ikhlas is what helps keep you concealed, keep your faults concealed. Secondly, charity. The Prophet said, whoever can whoever can conceal من استطاع منكم أن يستتر من النار ولو بشق تمر فليفعل. Whoever can shield himself, put up a barrier between himself and the hellfire, even if it's with a half a day, even if it's just something small, then let him do so. And the third thing, and we'll end the Khutbah with this, is to make dua consistently every morning and every evening with the dua that the Prophet ﷺ never used to leave off saying. The Imam said that there were some words that the Prophet ﷺ would always say in the morning and always say in the evening. Allahumma inni as'aluka al-afiyata fid-dunya wal-akhirah. Allah, I ask you for well-being in this life and in the next life. Allahumma inni as'aluka al-afwa wal-afiyah fi dini wa dunyaya wa ahli wa mali. Allah, I ask you for well-being and for pardon in my religious affairs, in my worldly affairs, in my family, and in my wealth. And then the Prophet would say, Allahumma astur awrati wa amin rawati. Oh Allah, conceal my faults. If this is the only part of the dua, you memorize time. You then memorize the rest. Allahumma astur awrati. Oh Allah, cover my faults, those things I don't want to be seen. My awra. Cover that. Allahumma astur awrati wa amin rawati. And make at ease my fears. Allow me to feel secure, even though there are things that we are scared of. And then the Prophet ﷺ would conclude the dua, وَأَخَذْنِي مِنْ بَيْنِ يَدَيَّ وَمِنْ خَلْفِي وَعَنْ يَمِينِي وَعَنْ شِمَالِي وَمِنْ فَوْقِي وَأَعُوذُ بِعَظَمَتِكَ أَنْ أُغْتَالَ. Asking Allah to go for his protection from in front, from behind, from right, from left, and from up top, and that we seek Allah as well as refuge from being swallowed from beneath us. This is a dua that should be on our tongues constantly. We should draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by concealing our own faults and concealing the faults of other believers and not falling into the culture of exposing others and loving the drama and loving for people to be exposed. And getting out of the hands of publicizing and publishing everything that we do. If we are the ones who cover ourselves, then Allah will add to that cover and conceal our faults. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. اللهم اصلح لنا ديننا الذي هو عصمة أمرنا واصلح لنا دنيانا التي فيها معاشنا واصلح لنا آخرتنا التي إليها معادنا واجعل الحياة زيادة لنا في كل خير والموت راحة لنا من كل شر. اللهم انصر إخواننا في غزة. اللهم انصر إخواننا في غزة. اللهم انصر إخواننا في غزة. اللهم عليك بعدوك وعدوه يا رب العالمين. اللهم اعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الكفر والكافرين ودمر أعداء الدين.